All right, and we are live. What's up, everybody out there in YouTube? My name is Prince. I got my main man Ash on, and we are back with the Embodied Mind podcast after a little bit of a needed hiatus to take care of some professional stuff. How you been, Ash?
Busy, same as always, but happy to be back in front of the mic, in front of the camera, so that we can get back to doing what we do. Busy, same as
Oops,
always, but
forgot to mute that. And that's how you know that we are live. We
all
got
right.
a little hiccups going on. I forgot to mute the live stream there on YouTube that you guys are seeing on a bit of a delay. But anyway, what are we talking about first? You attended you've attended a mindfulness retreat with seafood, and you had workshops out on the West Coast last month. So I don't know about them, but if they don't want to hear about it, well, I really don't care. This is me and you having conversations about stuff we want to know about. So I want to know how the
Yeah.
workshop went that you taught, and then because I haven't even talked to you about the meditation retreat, so I'd like to hear all about both of those.
Right. Let me see. The workshop on let me see. That was in Sacramento. So that was the first time that we've been out there, and so that one was all right. We had a little some glitches in terms of sort of like the organization of things on the front end. So it was like we had it was like a fairly good turnout. Everybody, but almost everybody came down from the Bay Area, and it
Mhm.
was like, man, we could have just done this in the Bay Area and saved everybody a 2 hour drive. Um, so there's kind of some tricky stuff going on there in the Sacramento area that we're trying to figure out how to navigate around. But so the workshop was okay, and then the meditation retreat is man, we could probably talk the whole episode about that. But it was like last year I described it as probably one of the most powerful and transformative experiences as far as like training goes that I've had, in the last probably at least 5 years or more. And then, so, like this year we built off of, so like, for people that aren't familiar, we went to the place we call is Maba. It's the Mid America Buddhist Association, so it's like a legit, like fully functioning monastery in Augusta, Missouri. So it's about 45 minutes north of St. Louis. And so the abbot there is his name is Jiru, and so he has like a long history with Iwi Chuen, which for the viewers that don't know us, that's the martial art that we share in common. And so he was a student of Sijo, like back in Kuala Lumpur.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then he went to medical school, I think, in China, and but then he decided that he was gonna become a Buddhist monk and like learn how to master his mind. And so him and Sifu kind of went their separate ways for about 10 years or so. And then he ended up at a monastery in New York, and he was serving as the abbot there. And so he invited Sifu to come there, like as an employee, basically, so that Sifu was able to stay in the United States, like he had an invitation to work. And so it was while Sifu was there at it's called Chongya Monastery. It's in Carmel, New York. And so it was while the two of them were there, that was when Sifu first started getting like deeply exposed to Zen philosophy and concepts of mindfulness meditation. That was when he first started making the concepts between like, or making the link and the connections between like mindfulness, concentration, and like in martial arts, like what they talk about is ting, like tingjin, like listening. So then Jiru left Maba to start like a brand new Missouri, and he built that thing from the ground up. There was one existing structure on site at the time, which I can't remember which one. There's five structures that are there now. So there's what they call the Buffalo Lodge, and that's basically like where all the male monastics would bunk. Then there's the Blue Lotus Hall, and the Blue Lotus Hall is like where the dining hall is. There's a meditation hall upstairs, and then there's two other floors where the female monastics live, and the kitchen is also there. And then there's Chan Hall, and Chan Hall is a library, and then there's another meditation hall upstairs. Then there's Disang Hall, I think, and that's the mausoleum. And then there's like a Guanyin pagoda, which is out like behind the lake, which I forgot to go there again this year. That was like on my to-do list. But this year during this year's meditation retreat, I wound up being like the kitchen boss.
Mm.
So I was like, I had no personal breaks at all. Like I just spent the whole time like working. Like it was either we were meditating or I was in the kitchen, like working with the kitchen crew. Uh, but I mean, that was good. That had it's upshot too because I was in the kitchen with Sifu, and so like he was teaching me like how to cook, like how to actually like run the
Nice.
wok and how to tell like when the noodles are done, how to do the rice like just right, like all this kind of stuff. So that
Nice.
was yeah, and chopping vegetables and everything. So it was a good time. It was like just that alone was a good experience. But then of course like the training. So before I get too far off track, so long story short is Jiru is a pretty amazing guy, and like if you like each one of the structures that are there at Maba by themselves, like each one is like a six-figure home or facility, and considering that he built this whole temple like from the ground up, pretty much himself. I mean, he laid like the bricks like in the foundations, and I
Wow.
mean, there were at other times there was like different volunteers that would come in and help do this and that, and other monastics and everything were also helping to build it. But I mean, more or less, it's like Jiru built like it's on 60 acres, and it's amazing. And to be able to go there and it's like I think a lot of times like people like they get like the image in their head. It's like the movies are kind of like a greatest blessing and the greatest curse, because it's like as long as they're making cool like kung fu movies, people will be wanting to come train and do stuff, and but they come like with like a lot of weird ideas a lot of times, or like they think that they have to leave the country, to go have like an authentic experience somewhere. And that's totally not true anymore. It's like if you know where to look and you know the right people, it's like all these amazing things that are happening like right here in our own backyard. So it's like it's like, oh, I'm at like a legit, like you could say like Zen Buddhist temple learning like meditation from a legit Zen Buddhist monk. with my kung fu fam, like learning like all the deep stuff, So
Yeah.
it's just an amazing opportunity all the way around. And it just because it's like, Jiru himself, he's like Sifu in the sense of that he's one of those people that like embodies like his teaching and his way of life to such a degree that you can't help but be like drawn along in their wake.
Mm.
And it's like I mean that like in a positive way. I mean, obviously, it's like you can take that in a negative direction, like cult leaders or whatever. But this guy is like 100%, 110% legit. And so yeah, so last year, he places a big emphasis on the mindfulness of the body, and so especially for lay people. So because it's like so if for the listeners again that aren't familiar, the guys that are watching us live on YouTube, usually like with mindfulness meditation, I talk about it's four foundations of mindfulness. So is the first one is the mindfulness of the body. Second one is the mindfulness of the feeling. Third one is the mindfulness of mind, and then the last one is mindfulness of phenomenon. And so they're kind of like it's sequential in a way. So it's like you have to start with the mindfulness of the body, and so like that's where we started with last year, and we worked. We went through the four postures. So of sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. I think the lying down was probably well already actually Venerable Jiru is starting to get a reputation of being like really well known for his approach to the mindfulness of walking, which is a bit unique, the way that he teaches it and the way that he wants you to kind of practice. And so there's actually like other monastics who are coming to Jiru like from around the world, and they're going to Maba to stay there for like a period of time for him to train them specifically and the mindfulness of walking. What's up?
Oh, nothing. Kuan Yin.
um,
Kuan Yin.
so
The bodhisattva of compassion is
right.
messaging me.
Oh, on which platform?
Instagram.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. Now I
I'm
got it.
good.
Yeah. So now you can't concentrate.
No, I'm good. Concentration power.
Right. So, um, yeah. So anyway, like I said, he has sort of like a really unique approach to the how he works with mindfulness of or the walking practice, I should say. But so yeah, he puts a big emphasis on mindfulness of the body. And then again, like for the walking meditation, is he also stresses like heavily for lay people because it's a more of a dynamic kind of meditation than like just sitting meditation. And so it has like a little bit more carryover for most lay people. And then so yeah, so then this year, so like since last year was the focus was the mindfulness of the body, and technically like this year was a part two. So this year's emphasis was the mindfulness of the feeling, and we still went through the same. Like the emphasis was still on sitting, standing, walking, lying down. So we still used the same four postures, and then but we just went like a little bit further with it, and I have to say that uh, the result, I guess I could say that I got to go like kind of deep this year. I mean, I still wouldn't say like that I was. I mean, obviously, I didn't get to the point of like single pointed concentration, but
Didn't get to enter the stream.
Right. But I got to a point like where like getting close to the end of like the meditation portion because we also train some body work. So Bernie Langen is pretty well known like in the martial arts community, but like one of his main source of income actually is body work. And so he learned from like his teacher's name was Dub Lee. And so he learned from Dub Lee. Dub Lee learned from trying to think. He learned from Moshe. He learned from Moshe Feldenkrais and Ida Rolf both. And then after that, then he went and he took that to a Japanese Zen temple in Hawaii, and he finished off training, learning from them there, and then he kind of like combined them all together into what like he called Zen body therapy. So again, it was like all these kind of like all these things that are they're all related, you know, for us from like from Ili Chuan point of view. So like the foundation of it is like Zen mindfulness, right? So so we did 2 days of that, but as we were approaching the end of the meditation period, you know, like I was getting to a point where it was like you know, like if you do like a lot of meditate, like seated meditation, especially like after a while, your back's going to start to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes along. It's like a little bit of pain is part of the territory, and that's actually like part of the process. You know, because it's like everything is like come, go, like arising and passing away. So like just change, right? And so that's part of, you know, like because when you first sit down, you can feel stable, you feel comfortable, but then you're sitting, and especially after like days of sitting, it's like your back starts to eh.
Yeah.
And uh I'm not 100% sure because it was like since I was at the retreat, I wasn't able to manage my electrolytes like as fine tuned as I really need to for being on a keto diet right now. So I think that kind of played a role because I was having like a really bad like
Right.
cramp in
That's what I was
my
about to say.
yeah, like on my upper back, and it was like the pain was referring around to the front. So like I was having like a stabbing pain in my chest
Mm.
after a while of like seated meditation, but I was able to hold like I got to a point where I was able to just observe it more like just as sensation. And so like the feeling of like pleasant or unpleasant didn't really like take over my mind so deeply. And so like I still had like this core of like calmness
Mm.
still like within the you know, surrounded by like this the painful sensation. So I'm gonna chalk that up as a win.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's like that was something that I was able to take away that because it's like, okay, now you know, like you're able to go to like this threshold and still like hold on to, like I said, like a level of calmness, you know, within that. That was like that. I mean, to me, it almost felt like spatial, where it
Mm.
was like, you know, I had like a little like bubble of like that kind of calmness inside like a larger bubble that was, you know, like my physical body and like the exterior and everything of that was going on. Like I said, and it was like fairly, you know, physically uncomfortable. It's painful. It was just like every time I would take a breath, it was like that. It's like getting stabbed in the heart. Um, so you know, physically it was like quite painful, but you know, like I said, like within that, I had that like a bubble of concentration still and calmness that I was like, it didn't affect me as much. right. So like I said, for the focus of the retreat and as a new, you say like a new level, like in my own practice of meditation, that was kind of, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna call that a win. So yeah, so it's pretty awesome. And
Yeah,
then
it sounds like it.
yeah, and then the body work also. Of course, it's like I could just retire and train full time. You know, it's like all day, every day. And but saying that, it was like the body work portion could have been, we could have done twice as long as we ended up spending on that because there was a lot of material. Um, and I learned a lot. And also, like one of the big things was that mm, it just kind of increased my confidence to be able to use some of the material that we were working with because already like Ely Chuan kind of develops, that touch where it's like you become more proficient at being able to move people's like tissue around.
Mm.
And but some a little bit is like the more on the diagnostic end, but like with the Zen body therapy approach is kind of like not as I don't know what we want to call, like not as critical, because it's like if you just kind of go through everything like almost like as an algorithm and
Hmm.
just let the body, you just kind of go through it as an algorithm, let the body sort itself out more or less. And so yeah, so it was, I don't know, I don't want to use like too much hyperbole. It was awesome. It was incredible. It was, but it was all, it was all of those things.
Yeah.
So, and then we're already scheduled to go back next year. I think second weekend of August, and then
Nice.
yeah, I'm gonna start working. I'm gonna take your suggestion, and I'm gonna try to find like a Universalist Unitarian church here. Like there's one
Mm.
that's out like
There's
in
two out
Chandler,
there.
and I'm gonna ask them about like renting some space from them because I want to bring Jiru I want to start bringing Jiru to Phoenix to like just continue on with more guidance
You
from
might
the
not
master.
even have to rent space if they're like where I go. If you just go and ask, like, do they have a UU, like any Buddhists? Is there like anything they're offering for UU Buddhists? I mean, my church would be open to it. They wouldn't even say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna, rent you space," like, because they're not offering. Well, specifically, I'm talking specifically for my church because we had like this was before I started going there, but we had like a Buddhist nun, and they wouldn't, for whatever reasons, whatever monastery she was with, she was a Tibetan Buddhist. She had like reached the highest point that she could reach as a woman. They're like, if you were a man, you could keep going. So at that point, she had like people who were coming there specifically, like she was their teacher. So she left, and my church was like, sure, you can. She's got like the meditation room there was for her and for, when she would lead meditation stuff. And she died. And I remember like Reverend Gale always talks about it. Like they went and like, they were on the way to the house, and somebody had to like run out and grab like the Tibetan Book of the Dead to perform her final rites. And like they always talk about, like it always comes up when they talk about like how Universalist Unitarians do funerals, is they don't, there's not like, oh, and we're going to read the Bible and read this same passage. There's a time for death, there's a time for life, there's a time for joy, there's a time for pain, whatever
Right.
that is in Ecclesiastes. Like they try to mix it up, and whatever your tradition is, they try to honor that, the best they can. And if they have to bring in someone from that tradition, they will. So yeah, I would just go and ask them like, hey, do you have people interested in Buddhism? Because every fellowship is different. Like there's one here, and they asked me about like doing some paid speaking, but they're all like staunch atheists. and somebody was like, yeah, well, maybe you could go and like talk about Tai Chi and the Tao, but don't like talk about God because they're all atheist. And I'm like, well, if you're telling me what I can and can't say, I don't think it's a good idea. Because sometimes I might go off the script, and just say whatever,
Right.
and piss some people off. And I was just like, yo, man, you just got, if you say, hey, you're going there, they want you to talk about Tai Chi and the Tao and mindful movement, and whatever comes out, comes out. That's what I'm going to talk about.
Right.
If you get offended, see me in the parking lot. I hope my kung fu is better than yours. Yeah, that was a huge tangent. But yeah, I just call them up and or go by and just see what they have to offer. They might say, "Hey, we would love to have him out.
Right.
Get more
Yeah.
people
So
in our space."
I think the only thing that might be tricky about it is like for the first time out, he wants to do like a 3 day thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like taking up some of their space for like 3 days could be, I don't know, we'll see. Like I
Yeah,
said, I'm gonna get in touch with him. So,
yeah.
but
I wish I were out there. We're here. I could probably swing it at my church.
right. Yeah, I mean that'd be, I mean, we might be able to swing it at your church anyway and
Yeah.
start bringing Jiru over there. I mean, that'd be
Well, I need to get that coaching thing off the ground. The hotline wouldn't really let me go for 3 days, so
right.
Uh, that's something I was thinking about as you were talking, is like we had these amazing opportunities right here in the US, but it's like our like I won't say our lifestyle. It's almost like you have to carve out your own way. Like somebody
Yeah.
like Mike, Sincere, some of my other friends in the fitness industry, they can walk away, and do, okay, I'm going to spend a week, you know, at a mindfulness retreat. But people stuck in a regular 9 to 5, it's almost like, and because I'm not one of those people that likes to slam that way, because that works for some people. Like I just want to do my 40 hours a week, eat my beans and rice with my kids, and enjoy the weekends and do this. And some of those jobs are important, but I feel like, if you're kind of not the average American, it's like you got to carve out a different route. Okay, well, I'm gonna go and train with my Sifu in New York in his basement for the next 2 weeks. So either I do some temp work or something and save my money and have this very minimalist lifestyle to afford to do that, or I'm some kind of investment banker where I can just, actually, I don't even think they can just get up and walk away, even though they make a lot of money. So that, I don't know, that's something, I don't know, we could discuss, have somebody on to talk about one day, or something that I got to think about myself. I guess because I'm thinking about that right now, is like,
Right.
I
Well,
jump
I mean,
back
that's
into
kind of
fitness, I can kind of, I need to like really be in and decide what my end goal is. What kind of lifestyle do I really want to lead?
right. Well, I mean, that's kind of where it's like I've managed to get myself to a certain level of that where it's like, at least I built things around like making sure that like I get a lot of non-exercise activity every day. I get a lot of fresh air and sunshine every day. And that it's like I have a flexible schedule. It's like I still have like, it's like right now, like health and fitness coaching, everything is still a little bit of a side hustle for me. So I still have like my main hustle, but I set myself up so that like my main hustle is flexible so that I can take a week off to go do mindfulness retreat. Or it's like next year, I think I we have 2 dates now that I'll be teaching in Germany next year. I can't talk too much about that right now, but I mean that'll be happening. Um, and it's like, so I do have like that flexibility to an extent. So yeah, I mean it's like I've made a lot of lifestyle choices
Mm-hmm.
that have let me go in that direction, like more and more. But at the same time, as people want to keep in mind is that that doesn't come like without some pretty steep costs
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And especially like for me, because I'm married, so it's like wife and kids, and a lot of time my family shares in those costs.
Yeah.
Like fortunately for me, is like my wife is cool with you know all of that as long as like I the bills are paid and I keep steaks in the freezer. So and not everybody has that kind of so it's a combination of all those
Yeah.
different factors. But the thing of it is actually too is that like this is one of the things that I want to talk about was that not everybody has to like quit their 9 to 5. Like there's actually a lot of real value. It's not even just that it's like whether it's an important job or it's not an important job. I mean, for me personally, I feel like all work has value.
Yeah. Yeah. I do too.
Um, but the point is that sometimes it's like you need that routine and structure. Like I
Yeah.
think we were talking about a little bit of this like on Messenger, where it's like
Yeah.
you got more, you get more done. You're more productive when you got like that 9 to 5 anchor.
Yeah. I mean, this is the
Eh,
most I've trained in probably 5 years.
Right. And it was like when I first quit my full-time gig in 2015, it was like the first thing that I noticed was that, man, I can't get anything done without a routine. I
Mhm.
can't get I'm like my training is like all over the place. My, this, that, and I was constantly like running around trying to put out fires. Of course, I had some like complicating factors. One of the things was that I just moved like across country with my family. So I mean but the one thing that I noticed was like it's like, you know what? You need a routine. You need a schedule, like to really be like even in a monastery. It's like I mean, there's a difference between like habit and routine. But it's
Mhm.
like the routine, like is you need the structure. So it's like if you're listening or you're watching right now, it's like don't like get it all up in your head like, oh, if only I could quit my job and like train all day, like I would be able to have like the life that I want. I'd be able to finally get in shape. I'd be able to do this and the other thing. Well, it's like maybe not. It's like you might actually be able to be more productive and because you have that anchor,
Yeah.
and like when you can like plug things in. So it's like I said that, like I set myself up that where it's like even like on my main hustle is checking off a lot of the boxes that I would have to like make a deliberate effort to do, like to be outside, to get a lot of non-exercise activity. It's like I think
Mhm.
on Friday, I think I walked almost 10 miles. I think I did like 9 point something miles. Like so, you know, but like I said, it's like I've made choices to like put that stuff in place. There's the value in having the routine, and then there's also like the flip side of considering like, okay, what is the cost gonna be for me to like pursue like this thing to whatever level. So that's just me
Yeah.
thinking out loud, I guess.
Yeah, well, what you said about, needing that routine makes a lot of sense. It's like, I know, okay, I got to be at the office at this certain time. So I have to wake up at this time, get my workout in. And I think how that came up is I said, oh man, doing a second shift is like got me off my routine because the time
Right,
I'm waking up is usually I'm either finishing my workout or I'm in the middle of it. And so that got me out of the routine that I had already established. But even then, like knowing, okay, I gotta be at this place at this time, I'm gonna be there this long, and I know when I'm done, I'm gonna be tired. I gotta get up and train. And
right,
this is the most consistent I've been in years. I mean, even I think when I first started training, and as far as oh man, I gotta do this, this, and that. Then I can train all. You can't train all day. Not every day, all the time. Your
Right.
body's got to recover. It's some days where you're like, you know what? I don't have anything to do, and I am not doing anything today. I'm just gonna do nothing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Because that's
there's
what I need.
right, exactly. You need to recover. But then even like within like the realm of training, it's like there's so many like competing demands.
Yeah,
And so you're always trying to like balance like those competing demands. So the point is actually not really like to train all day. The point is to find like the minimum effective dose um, of each thing to do that so that you can move on to whatever else that you have to be able to focus on for that day.
right, right. That's kind of I don't know if this is a segue, but that's what I had to figure out with kind of the workout program that I had started, an old one, is I said, yo, this is too much. What is the minimum effective dose that I need to get the response from my body so that I can move on and get to the next thing? Because I mean, if you're some kind of perfectionist or you've got some kind of goal, it's like there's always there's always gonna be trade-offs. It's like, okay, if I swing these kettlebells, if I do some powerlifting, well, I could be doing Ely Chin, I could be standing, I could be meditating, right? I could be working on technique. And that's what when I said somebody kind of tried to clap at me, they didn't know what they were talking about. He was like, well, if you do all the strength training, when are you like actually working on techniques? I think you should do lighter weights and then hurry up and finish that so you can work more on precision. And I'm
Right.
like, well, I kind of said, look, man, you need to go look up the specificity principle. Like, if I'm lifting weights that's going to make me stronger, it's obvious the goal is I'm trying to get stronger, right? If I want to improve technique, then I work on my techniques, right? Lifting weights is not going to improve my technique, working on my techniques, but there's some crossover. I mean, the stronger you are as an athlete, you're probably going to be a better athlete in most
Right.
situations, right?
Right.
So, and having more muscle, moving to the next topic. The more muscle you have, the more glycogen, the more glycogen you can store.
Well, yeah, that's true too. So I wanted to bring up. I've been reading this book. So like on Instagram, I follow like a lot of like DOs and physiotherapists and podiatrists and stuff like that. So there is this one podiatrist that I follow in particular, and so I picked up on this interesting piece because so like talking about meditation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like in meditation, one of the instruction is to keep the tongue pressed to the palate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I discovered through this physio was that when you press the tongue to the palate, it helps to activate the what they call like the RAS, is the reticular activating system. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it has like a certain specific neurological effect. In other words, it helps you get into like a state of arousal,
Mm.
which is important for meditation. You need a certain level of arousal so that you don't fall asleep, right?
Oh yeah.
And so anyway, so I asked her like, hey, where can I find out more about some of this stuff? And she pointed me to this book called Smart Moves by Carla Hannaford. And so I thought it was interesting. Like I wanted to bring up this little bit because, so of course, like the show is the Embodied Mind podcast. So it just, I don't know, you call it synchronicity or whatever, but like there was this little bit in this book that, I mean, basically the whole thing is kind of like about embodied cognition, right? It's like you don't like the brain does the thinking, but like that's my saying. The brain does the thinking, but consciousness is a whole body experience, right? So in chapter 4 is talking about like the role of emotions in learning. And so there, she mentions this computer programmer named David Gelernter, Gelernter. Not sure how to say that, but he was doing some experiments with like trying to with artificial intelligence, basically. And so he goes on to assert that emotions. So, I've actually heard some of this before. Is like a lot of people are worried about like artificial intelligence like taking over humanity, right? And there's a certain group of people that say like we don't really have anything to worry about as far as that is concerned because like a computer will never be able to experience our kind of consciousness because like our kind of consciousness needs to come through. It can't run on hardware; it needs to run on wetware. Again, because it's this whole body thing, right? And
Mhm.
so they're saying emotions are not a form of thought, not an additional way to think, not a cognitive bonus, but are fundamental to thought. If we subtract emotion from thought, what remains is merely one end of a continuous spectrum, linear/logical thought. And to identify this narrow, high focus band with thought in general is entirely inaccurate. Uh, he goes on to assert that emotions, which are inseparable from thought, are also inextricably tied up with bodily states. This bodily state is part of the emotion, feeds it, and helps define it. This means that ultimately you don't think with just your brain, you think with your brain and body both.
Mm.
So, like I said, it's just kind of like, of course, for me, it's like confirmation bias.
Yeah.
But it's just another way to think about it. And so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to find a lot more interesting things in this book to talk about if
Yeah.
people want to check it out for themselves. But they can always click the uh, video description below for links. But yeah, I mean, there you have. I mean, like that one paragraph, like we could spend a long time like picking that apart because it also like relates back to like what we were talking about, like again with mindfulness meditation, is the body, the feeling, the mind, and phenomenon,
Hmm.
right? So it's like the meditation masters have already said this for like a long time. It's like already like a thought arises and a feeling or an emotion arises along with the thought. It's like they come together. I mean, that's like it's the body, the feeling, and then from the feeling then is like has the effect on the mind. That so that was like one of the things like Jiru was saying. It was like most people never know mind, uh like as mind, because it's like the as soon as the feeling arises, like the feeling conditions like all of our thinking like afterwards. And
Hmm.
so it's like for us as like meditators, it's like we want to be able to kind of like, I don't want to say that we want to short circuit that process, but we want to, I don't know, what's a good word? We want to be able to uh, elevate above it, right? So
Hmm.
that it's like, it's like, okay, maybe like the feeling comes, but it doesn't condition our thinking. Our thinking is still sort of like free from that sort of,
I I get what right now. I'm reading The Body Keeps the Score, brain body, brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. So it's like looking at people who've experienced trauma, and I'm very early. I think I'm only in the third chapter. But basically, traumatic events literally change your how your neurons fire, and they'll change the your physiology, right?
Right.
In your
Right.
body. So
Right. And
it
then,
what's that?
oh, I was gonna say, and we've talked about it too before, is like actually those traumatic experiences, they'll leave like a mark on your DNA. They'll
Yeah.
change your epigenome, and then you'll pass that on to. But go on.
Yeah. Well, actually, like Darwin's last book was on that topic, like feelings. I think it's called like the Foundation of Feelings or something. And he was talking about what eventually led to the discovery of the vagus nerve. He called it something else like the gastro something brain nerve or something. But uh I think I can't remember what I was about to say because I said the Darwin thing and lost my train of so the chapter I'm on right now is talking about like when stressors come in, um like the flight or flight response is
Right.
the feeling. I think it's the amygdala. The signal goes there first, and the part of the brain that processes everything. Okay, I see like my neighbors are fighting across the street. Okay, let me process this. All right. Okay, I'm just gonna stay back and get my phone ready in case I need to call 911 or something if somebody gets shot. I don't know. They're kind of hood over there. But versus shots ring out, boom, 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 they shooting. I jump up and take off running, right? Flight
Right.
or flight response. Like I don't even think. I hear gunshots or flight, fight, flight, or freeze. So that's the feelings taking over. So that's yeah, it's that's what as meditators, you don't want that like that. So it almost is kind of, I wouldn't say short circuit, but kind of bypass. Like this is biologically what we're created to do. Okay, but that's not necessarily what ought to happen. And I kind of wonder if like you have, because this is what like Gopi Krishna, this was like his life's mission, right? Was to have like people with this awakened kundalini, who short circuit that process, change their the way their neurons fire, which will change their biology, and then they like, this will sound crazy, but then they all hook up and basically create a master race of enlightened. He said that's the future of humanity. All of these people who have this awakened kundalini all mate, and then their children are born that way, and that's like the next step in human evolution. It sounds crazy, but I mean, what we're talking about is, if your traumatic experience can change your DNA and you can pass that on, why can't it work the other way?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's like, and
That's kind of
so like,
scary. I
right when
just
you're
birthed the master race of humanity.
right, you put a plug out there for the master race.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's like, as coaches, when that's an important uh, aspect that we need to consider because it's like if you're trying to help somebody, let's just say like lose 40 pounds or whatever, it's like if their headspace isn't right, that's going to alter their physiology and they're not going to be able to drop some or all of that weight just based on, getting, being all up in their head. And so yeah, there's a complex, that's a whole can of worms. I think we've covered some of that before, so I don't want to
Yeah.
get too deep into that one right now because we're running long into the show already.
Yeah.
So
Sorry about it.
let's take that opportunity to switch now because I had this study that I wanted to talk about. So did you read it? Did you get a chance to check this out? Did it come into your news feed already this past week? Because it was all over the news, like every the USA Today and everybody was blowing up the headlines with low carb diets are gonna kill you.
Yeah, well, they tend to sensationalize things.
Right.
I looked at I read the summary before we got on. I think Mike posted it on Twitter, and I retweeted it so I could read it later, but I forgot all about it. But
Right.
I read it before we got on the summary that you sent me.
Uh, yeah, so basically, again, if people want to read the study for themselves, which I always encourage you to do, so because it's like I'm not trying to tell you anybody what to think, right? But
Yeah, it's in the video
anyway, the
description.
right, the video description below will have the link to like the original study. So the title of the study was Dietary Carbohydrate Intake and Mortality, a prospective cohort study and meta-analysis by Sara B Seidelmann et al. And there was at least 6 or 8 authors, I think, on this study. So there's a couple of things that we want to talk about here, just from the title already. A prospective cohort study. So what that means is that prospective means is what they did is they tracked it over time. So and usually it's like a long time out into the future. So in this case, it was actually the study took place over 20 years. And what they did was they looked at the effective macronutrient splits. So in other words, how much, like what the ratio of protein, fat, and carbs in your diet were, and the effect that that had on longevity. And actually, in technical terms, what they looked at was all-cause mortality, which means death from any cause. And they from the study they concluded that both very high and low carb diets reduced lifespan by about 40 years. So there's some, just like everything, it's like there's some good here, some bad, and some ugly. And so, first thing is that just because somebody releases a peer-reviewed research paper that says X, Y, or Z doesn't mean that you necessarily need to take that at face value. It's like you want to be able to like dig in, uh, because and then again, like I said, it's like the news is going to take that study, they're going to take their conclusions, and they're going to sensationalize it even more. So it's like like I said, there's some good here, some bad here, and some ugly. And you should take all of those into consideration with the study results. So, so what was good about this study again was that it was a really large group of people. It was over 15,000 people in total, and it was over a fairly long period of time, 20 years. So that kind of study, you know, that's one of the biggest problems with like human studies, right? Is that they take so long, really, because it's like, like we want to talk like what we were talking about just a second ago with like stress and
Mhm.
epigenetic changes due to stress, right? If you want to track that over like several generations, it's like easy with mice because they have, you know, a
Short lifespan.
generation. Yeah, they have a short lifespan. You can go through like 10 generations in, a short period of time compared to like with human studies. So anyway, it's both good. In my opinion, this was like both good and bad about the study, because also leading into like there were some real weaknesses with this study before you want to consider that, okay, low carb diets are going to affect your lifespan. Because the first one, and this is the biggest one for me, was that uh, I mean, the study went out over 20 years. Do you think that the researchers were tracking like actually what people were eating every day for 20 years? They
Probably
used
not.
what they call it's an FFQ. It's a food feeding or a feeding frequency questionnaire. So in other words, they ask you like, what did you have for breakfast last Monday, Prince? And how much did you have?
Yeah,
Right?
people always they either undershoot or overshoot. Usually
They way
overshoot.
they way undershoot. Like they know from other research that they've done is like most people like underestimate like how much they were eating of something by 50%.
Mm.
And then that's also because it's like everyone has like emotional attachment to food and eating. And so like they, like they feel like that the researchers are going to be judging them. And they're like, "Oh man, I don't really want to tell this guy that I don't want to admit that I eat like a package of Twinkies like every day and wash it down with beer or six,
Yeah.
after work. I'm gonna like omit the Twinkies and just admit to one beer every day after work or something like that. So there's a lot of that. And then it went over 20 years. And if I recall correctly, they actually only interviewed people twice in the period, like they basically like at the beginning and then like at a
Mm.
halfway point and then again at the follow-up point, or they looked at like the death rates at the follow-up point. So it's like, they're asking people like midway through, like, how often did you eat this, that, and the other thing like 10 years ago? Unless you're the type of person that is like tracking closely like what you're eating for whatever dietary purposes, there's no way that you're going to
Yeah.
give like an accurate number. So
Yeah.
that was one of the biggest problems with this study. So before, when people start talking about it around the water cooler is one thing that you want to keep in mind or bring up.
Yeah.
And then, so the other big problem with this study is that I really want to focus on, that I'm calling it the ugly. And this is like super common, is that the researchers make no distinction between like processed and unprocessed foods. So for the purposes of this study, they were counting like all carbohydrates as being equivalent, and they were counting all um, protein and fat sources from an animal source as being equivalent. So in other words, what they're saying is that like a bag of Cheetos counted the same as bananas and kale, and a Slim Jim and a Big Mac from McDonald's or whatever counted the same as like uh, grass fed pasture raised beef, right? Those two things, none of those things are equivalent.
Mm.
And they've done like other research where it's like have shown that as soon as they start accounting for, like, so for instance, like there's been a whole bunch of studies that have showed that the consumption of red meat increases your risk for cardiovascular disease, right? But all of those studies, or in any of those studies that have shown that, they never accounted for like processed versus unprocessed meat, or they counted like a hamburger from McDonald's the same as like a lean chicken breast. And as soon as they separate those two populations, because it's like the people that are eating, Big Macs and washing them down with bacon and are also like smoking 2 packs a day and
Mm.
aren't very likely to exercise, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the type of people that are on that diet are also engaging in other activities as well
Yeah.
that are likely to like contribute to heart disease and cancer and all that kind of stuff. And as soon as you separate those two populations, like that difference, or you could say it's like the increase in cardiovascular risk or cardiovascular disease, the risk for it disappears on the side that's not eating processed, especially processed meats, bacon, deli meats, ham, like all that kind of stuff. It's like it seems like that the nitrates are especially. So that's another thing that you want to keep in mind, because it's like when they were doing the study, and this one kind of one of the things where it's like I kind of had like I kind of went off on somebody on Facebook a little bit, like not too bad, because he was kind of I mean he's a nice guy and he's kind of like in our little circle, but I was like, if you're gonna do keto, bro, like you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't just go into you can't go into it blind, because it's like it doesn't matter like uh vegetables should be the foundation of every diet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether that's paleo or keto or vegan. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I knew vegans like 25 years ago or 30 years ago that it was like it was all pizza and lasagna and every like funky tofurkey
Yeah.
bacon substitute. It was like, bro,
Processed. Yeah.
where's the vegetables? Like of course, no matter what, it's like fresh fruits and vegetables are always supposed to be the foundation
Yeah.
of your diet. And and that's where because then you get like a whole bunch of people that go off like half cocked and they're like, oh, Atkins is like all bacon and cheeseburgers all the time, right? It's like, and then maybe I'll throw in a half an avocado like somewhere,
Yeah.
it's like, right, and it's all canned cheese and all like processed garbage, like all the way.
Yeah.
It's like that's not going to help you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe it'll help you lose like 10 pounds because your insulin is going to go down. But like long term, you're going to end up still, and that's why like a lot of people they can't sustain those diets, like those weird, like when it gets like weird and fatty, because they're like eating like all, expensive, like processed, like stuff in a can, stuff in a box. Of course that stuff's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I mean, there's because one of the things about this study that we're going back to the study that we were just talking about was that they did make a distinction as people that focused on like adding vegetable protein, vegetable fats in their diets tend to live the longest. Duh.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's the takeaway, right? I mean, for me, that should be the takeaway is that vegetables are a must for long life and health, right?
Yeah.
Like vegetables, like fruit and vegetables, like need to be like the base of every food pyramid,
Right.
regardless of like what food, it's like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna be vegan, build it on fresh fruits and vegetables. Get away from the canned stuff, get away from the processed stuff. If you're gonna be keto, like it's not all like string cheese and bacon.
Pizza. Pizza
Right.
with cauliflower crust.
Right. Well, and that was the thing too, because I was like, I'm not going to mention his name. I was like, bro, like if you're going to do keto, like, okay, thumbs up, I'm doing keto, right? So it's not like I have a problem with keto, but you need to know like what you're doing,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're going to end up, and guess what? Like then, like the day after we had like what food porn photos do you think are coming up? It's like keto pizza and keto this and keto like all cheese, cheese, cheese.
Yeah.
It's like that's not going to work like long term.
Mm-mm. You can't just eat junk food and I mean, it'll work out. Well, it was a guy that lost like 20 pounds eating Twinkies.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, okay. So, I mean, that's this is like the so-called like 7-Eleven diet is what they
Yeah.
did, where it's like that guy tracked his calories like meticulously and he ate just like whatever. And, only from the 7-Eleven, like the stuff kind of stuff that you could find available like in a food desert.
Hmm.
Um, and still, he still lost weight. I think, I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head. He lost like 20 pounds or something like that. And then like his blood pressure went down, his cholesterol went down, like all the typical indicators that they would normally look for. Uh, but I can't remember like what happened. Like somebody threw that up in my face like recently about like, oh, you don't need a 7-Eleven diet and calorie, because I think their whole thing was calories are the only thing that count. And it's like, well, okay, first of all, those were N1 studies, right? It was like the researcher that did it like with himself.
Hmm.
So they're already like mathematically minded. So like tracking everything, like all that kind of detail. I mean, they already have like that kind of mindset, so it's not going to make them bug out. For most people, like trying to track like that, to make sure that you're like down to the calorie is going to make you go crazy.
Yeah. You'll
And
walk
then
in
again,
and
then you then you end up going like one way or the other. Either like you can't drop the weight because you're stressed because you're bugging about
Yeah.
tracking everything all the time, like everything that you put in your mouth, or uh, you're gonna go binge like to release the like that kind of like pent up from like restrict. So it's like, yeah, okay, somebody did do that like with the 7-Eleven diet, but you probably can't repeat those results. And most people probably can't repeat those results. It's like that was a short-term study. Like, what do you think you're gonna what kind of situation are you gonna be in like 10 years after you've been living on
Preservatives.
yeah, preservatives and frozen burritos and Twinkies or whatever, because that's what you, so like regardless of the calories, so it's like, I don't know. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, the big takeaway, preservatives are bad, vegetables are good. Eat your freaking vegetables like at every meal.
Yeah. I looked at there was a video a bunch of people that I went to high school with have been sharing on these keto cupcakes. And it's like it's eggs, like it's an egg cupcake, but it's got bacon, ham, and sausage in it, and then lots of cheese. And I was like, and they were
Right?
all, oh man, I can't wait to eat these. And I was like, like one, actually, all of them would probably lose weight eating that because they have some pounds to lose. But
Right.
I was just like, okay, but you can't. Well, one, I mean, even when I was eating meat, like three different kinds of meat in like one thing. I don't. If my grandma had made it, I probably eaten it. But like later on, I was like, that's not very. I don't know, not very
Right.
appetizing to me.
Right. That's
But
like nitrates on top of nitrates on top of
yeah,
nitrates.
yeah, like it just doesn't. It doesn't sound. It does sound healthy to me. I'm like,
Right.
okay, you're eating eggs, bacon, sausage, and ham all in this one, and you're not going to just eat one. You're
Right.
not going to eat one, and cheese. You're not going to eat one. I mean,
But I
like,
mean, yeah, I mean that's the thing is they probably would eat just two or something, because it's like, that's the thing about it. Something like that is it's going to fill you up. Like you're going to feel that like right here, like
yeah,
fast.
yeah,
Um, but still, it's like so it's like last week, I think last week. So I've been keto now for, I don't know, I think the 29th is going to be like like legit 2 months.
mhm,
And so twice in that period, I've made like a keto friendly cheesecake. So
mhm,
basically, I just swapped out the sugar for uh, like a monk fruit
mhm,
and a erythritol. And but so I'm tracking right now. So I'm tracking
yeah,
everything pretty close. So it's like, one of those slices is like 300 calories,
yeah,
and it's basically all fat. So now, like you indulge in something like that. Now you have to consider, okay, am I going to be able to hit my protein goal today and stay under like slightly like in a deficit so that
mhm,
I am, because it doesn't matter keto or not, like you're not going to really lose any weight if you're overeating. You're eating
yeah,
too many calories.
yeah,
And then so like I said, there's like those two big things. It's like that's a big whack of calories, like regardless of it's like keto friendly or not. Like that's a big whack of calories all at once.
mhm,
And then now you're gonna mess up like your macronutrient ratio. And because the first thing is like you want to make sure that you're getting your protein in so that you don't lose lean mass.
yeah,
And so that's what, like I was saying, it's like if you're gonna go that route, it'd be the same thing. Like I was saying, like we've talked about this before. Is like if you're gonna go vegan, like don't listen to like some hippie dummy that,
freely,
right, like, or whatever, like 30 bananas a day.
freely, and durian
Uh,
rider.
yeah, like go
Did I tell
find.
you when I tried that?
No.
That was the weekend I met Samiko up in Chicago at a kettlebell workshop. I was doing the freaking 30, but I decided I'm gonna do the 30 banana a day diet and be a fruitarian on the weekend that I got like the hardest workout that I'm gonna have all year. Man, you know how I passed IKFF1, like the level 1 certification was, I was like, I mean, like Samiko was like my sister now, but that was my first time meeting her. I was like, there's a really hot girl in the room. I'm about to pass out with this kettlebell. I cannot pass out in front of the hot girl, and I cannot fail this fitness test in front of the really hot girl. That was Samiko was the only thing like, got, because I didn't want to be embarrassed in front of her. And
Right.
then immediately after that, then Ken was like, "Okay, let's go to the falafel shop or the
You got yourself some shawarma.
yeah." I like ate like two. Ate like two meals, and
Right.
Ken was like, "Yeah, I'm a ovo lacto vegetarian. Here I
Right.
am with these like two plates of shawarma. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go vegan one day." He was like, "Oh, really, bud? Really?"
Yeah. One day, but that day is not today.
No, because I was like ready to inhale everything, like in sight. Man, I
Right.
remember like after that, I was so tired. That was the biggest Trader Joe's I've ever seen, was across the street from my hotel. And I was like too tired to go in there and like buy dinner. Like I was freaking exhausted. I was like, I would never do this fruitarian bullshit ever again. I don't give a damn what Harley says. I mean, I'm vegan, but he didn't have anything to do. That was Mike Mahler and Scott Shetler telling me, look, man, eat as much peanut butter as you want. Like if that helps you. So
Right. Hey, speaking of which, does Mike put out any I mean, I think that that would be something really valuable that he could contribute to the space, would be like put out like some meal prep stuff or a recipe book, or like do some
uh
coaching for, because it's
Scott
like,
Scott has a book that he did with a stick from what's the name of it? Dead Prez, called
right.
Lift Iron, Eat Plants. But there's a lady that has like her whole business. She was a chef and then she went vegan. So Mike, it's somewhere, because that's how I found out. I got found it through his website, and I haven't gone through the course, but she has a free course, like basically how to tear your kitchen apart and build it back up, where you can cook vegan without needing any recipes. You learn how, this is the seasoning you need, this and that. And she takes you through a full course, but then she has, of course, it's her business. Then she has like online classes. This is how you become a vegan specialist, like cooking. And I keep saying I'm gonna go through it, but like my kitchen in this house, like I said, this house was built in 1932, so it's
Right.
not very, yeah, there's like no meal prep area or anything. I'm like on top of, so I keep saying if I get in the other house that was built in 1964, then I'll actually like get more serious about like cooking and doing videos and that kind of thing. But yeah, he Mike, because that's what he doesn't use recipes or anything. He just uh knows how to season stuff and says, all right, I'm having this, and this, throws it in the
Right.
skillet, and he cooks like cooking for him is like meditation. Like he was saying, he never like turns the oven all the way up, but like the highest it goes is like medium heat, and he'll like let stuff simmer for like 40 minutes, and he'll just sit
Hmm.
there and play with his dogs and check on the
Right.
food and play with Grover and Raina, and he's like, it's a meditation for him. It's like
Right.
usually I'm like, man, this needs to hurry up. I'm
Right.
ready to eat.
Well, you know what I mean? I think it's like, those guys are like him or Steve Cotter, the other guy that I can think of like off the top of my head. I mean, those guys are like strong. They're killing it, and they've been vegan for a long time. So it's like they obviously know what they're doing. And so that's the point, is that regardless of like what you think you want to do, like take some time to educate yourself. Like go find like a coach to help you with that.
Yeah,
Learn what you're doing so that you don't wind up eating 30 bananas a day.
yeah. No, like my friend Frazier, he and his wife Lauren, that's their whole business. I remember they first went vegan in 2013, and I mean he is deadlifting, what is that, 4 plates? But I mean, like their whole business is like meal plans, workout programs, like that. When I said I did the vegan keto program, that was with them. And the real program is like their fat apocalypse, and they got recipes. That matter of fact, they have like a whole like database of, it's, you have to buy a subscription to use it, but it's a whole database of like vegan um, recipes, directions on how to cook, shopping lists. And it was stuff they just, as they were learning, they just wrote down what they were doing. Um, and like I said, I lost what, 10, 11 pounds, dropped 3% body fat in 10 days doing vegan keto. And it wasn't bad. It was just all the freaking coconut oil that I had to put in everything.
Right.
Coconut oil is like, if I got the squirts for 30 minutes every morning when I first wake up,
Right.
that's not something I really want to stick
Right.
to long term.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I don't think like keto. I mean, obviously some people can make it work, but it's not compatible with vegan, like a vegan approach.
I think you can do
It's
it as long as you're not ingesting all the oil. What's her name? Damn, she lives here in Tennessee too. She's on YouTube. Uh, her channel is Unnatural Vegan, but I'm trying to call her by her real name. Swayze. Swayze did vegan keto, and she ran it on her channel, but she was either pregnant while she did it or breastfeeding, and so she was like, I'm like, this is a dumb experiment for me to do right now. But she did it without like all the oil. So I was gonna say like I would be interested in like doing carb cycling or doing like keto in the winter when it's harder for me to get fruit. Because
right,
that's usually when like every time it's cold and I'm like, man, I don't think I can do this vegan thing anymore. Cause I like want more. It's like I'm
right,
like my body's wanting more fat.
right,
So I'm thinking like ahead, especially if I'm training people and they're like, if I got plant-based people coming to me, it's like, oh, I can't say, oh yeah, well I'm vegan except for when I go get some chicken or something, because I start like am not getting enough to eat, and start like craving meat or whatever's easiest for me to get. It's like I need to like start thinking now. In the winter, I want more fat, more protein. Um, and so it's like I can't eat the same way that I eat now during the summer, where yeah, I can have. Actually, I haven't been eating that many salads, but like I've been doing like homemade Chipotle. That's not gonna cut it once it
right,
gets cold here. Like I want more real food, so I might start looking into like more high fat things or hitting Mike up, because Mike eats like a high fat vegan diet. Like that might be why he posted the study, because he was like, yeah, I don't eat high carb anyway. It's like 40% carbs, uh,
right.
30% fat, 30% protein, if I remember what he said last time. So yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's a good point to wrap it up for this week.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good. What you got planned for this upcoming week?
Let me see. I'm coming up onto the end of like finishing up the Precision Nutrition Level 2 coaching course. So it's actually down to just like weeks left.
Nice.
So it's a case study due today. So after I get off the call with you, I got to wrap that up, and then I'm going to focus on. I want to get my jumpstart guide, like a quick jumpstart guide, put together for people that are interested in like starting kind of like with a paleo type approach. So that's going to focus on the six principles, and so I'm going to get that put together, and then once I I told myself that once I get that finished and ready for people to start downloading, I was going to reward myself with like Bernie has this little thing. It's called like a nano press. It's about like this
Mm-hmm.
big, and it has like a little like you pack the canister with like espresso grounds,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put your hot water in there, and then you squeeze the hell out of that little like the little button because you need to like kind of squeeze the hot water through the grounds like with some pressure to get espresso.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was in Bulgaria last year, that was like one of the highlights. I don't know if I told you about that. That was like one of the highlights of uh my experience there because you know like with the city we were in and is called Plovdiv,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like the fifth oldest city in the world.
Oh wow.
And so they've got like on one side of the street they've got like a 1,200-year-old functioning mosque,
Mm-hmm.
and on the other side of the street would be like a 1,400-year-old or 1,500-year-old cathedral, like Eastern Orthodox cathedral,
Huh.
just
Yeah.
chilling side by side. So we were in downtown Plovdiv, and there was a mosque that was there, and on the front of the mosque was like a Turkish coffee place. So I was like, we went in there, and I started drinking espressos like while I was in there. I was like, man, this is all right. I could get used to this because we were just chilling, like looking around. So anyway, so I got a taste for drinking espresso when I was over there.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get that jumpstart guide put together and ready for people to download, I promised myself I was going to reward myself by buying one of those little nano pressos on Amazon. But
Nice.
so that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of weeks. What about you?
Well, I'm actually gonna be finally getting back to PN1 either tonight or in the morning after my workout. That's my thing for now that I'm off doing this weird schedule. I'm gonna carve out days on Mondays and Thursdays specifically for PN.
Hmm.
In 2 weeks, I'm gonna suck it up and jump on this online trainer academy. So we'll see how that works out. I'm gonna try to get. I want to get through that material as quickly as I can, and
I'm
get it
committed
out.
to doing that too, but I think maybe probably next year.
Yeah, I got all these ideas, things that I've been wanting to do, uh, group exercise classes, and it's like I don't have a place to go. And I remember when my ex-girlfriend said when I wanted to do group classes, she was like, "You have your garage," and it's like I do. I do have a place, but I can't bring people there. I have the internet. Why can't I offer group exercise classes on? So that's why I want to get through it. And I guess if I get through it, then I can tell you, my experience and whatnot. But I heard that the people, this is what sold me, is that once you pass, then they're like, they want you to succeed. Because if you succeed, they get more people to sign up. So I want to say, hey, look, I've got these things I want to do, kickboxing, martial arts type stuff, Tai Chi, like I'm friends with what's the Tai Chi fit guy. Um,
Mm.
but I've been like, this is something I talked to Kelly about. Like I wanted to do like a basic Tai Chi class, basic Tai Chi for weight loss, really just to hook people in. Oh, this is for weight loss, but if you want a real stuff, got to come over to Ely Chin, right?
Right.
This is to bring you in, get some weight off of you, get you to trust me. So like I've got like all these ideas for stuff I want to do, and it's like where do I do it? Right. I don't think I ever told you I got like a Muay Thai fitness kickboxer cardio kickbox for Muay Thai that I've been wanting to do. And it's like if I can talk to these folks and say, look, I like martial arts and kettlebells and meditation. I want to build a business around that online.
Right.
Uh, and then the more money I make doing that, then the more I can go hopefully get to the retreat next year and dive deeper into the meditation stuff. And maybe I say, you know what? I got all these cool places and people. I don't need to go back to school for this therapy thing.
Right.
You know, I have the therapist refer their people to me.
Right.
So
Right.
that's that. So I'm like launching that whole master plan this upcoming week, and hopefully, hopefully I get it up and running sooner rather than later. I had a 5-year plan, and I'm like, I want my 5-year plan to be like a 1-year plan now.
Right.
So
All right.
yeah,
Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. As always, don't forget that you can support the show on Patreon. You can find a link in the video description below. You can follow me and Prince on Instagram, Twitter. Again, links are in the video description below. If this is your first time here on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. And if you're listening to the show on iTunes or Stitcher, make sure that you leave us a review. That helps a lot.
five
Uh,
stars, five stars.
yeah, all 5 of them.
After every episode you listen to, just leave a review and be like, "That was dope, guys."
All right. As always, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.
All right, see y'all.